Hi everyone, today's episode I decided to dedicate it to dwarf tomatoes. And not even for the reason that they are getting more popular, but simply because among them every year I find more and more interesting and most importantly tasty varieties. And they also grow well outdoors, so if you are ready for another journey into the world of tomatoes, let's not waste a minute and move on to the review. Tomato Express is on its way. Take your seats, we are getting started. The first dwarf I'm gonna tell you about today is called Coastal Pride Orange. It's a Dan and Val McMurray selection from Canada. The plants are medium-sized, about 3 feet 3 inches or 1 meter tall when grown in 2 stems. The leaf is of the regular type, wrinkled, and the stems themselves are of medium thickness for dwarf tomatoes. The fruits are oval, slightly heart-shaped, bright yellow-orange in color, sufficiently dense with thick walls. Personally, these plants reminded me of tiny orange trees. The fruits weighed from 6.5 to 9 ounces or 185 to 258 grams, which is incidentally the same as the average weight of oranges. The tomatoes cut literally like butter, and their flesh is a rich orange color and very juicy. The flavor is good, sweet with tomato acidity, definitely enjoyable and balanced. Another plus is that the fruit stores well and is not prone to cracking. So Coastal Pride Orange is another good variety of yellow-orange dwarf tomatoes to add to my collection this season. And I can't help but remind you that it, along with the Rebel Starfighter Prime, became one of the parents of Dwarf Rebel Starfighter Grandpa's Heart, a new variety by Ross Crow, which I also managed to grow and about which I told you in previous reviews. Next, I'll show you a green one-ripe tomato variety called Dwarf Saucy Mary. The height of this dwarf was in the range of 3 feet 3 inches or 1 meter, with the plants themselves stopping their growth. So I would advise you not to get too carried away with the pruning and leave more stems on them, especially since the stems themselves are quite graceful by dwarf tomato standards, and the leaves are also compact so the plants don't take up too much space. The fruits are quite unusual, slightly ribbed elongated shape, of yellow-green color and decorated with dark green touches. To be honest, I found them quite amusing. At the same time, the yellow tint appears already at the ripening stage of the fruit, which makes it easy for you to determine the moment when they should be picked. The weight of tomatoes on average was about 6 ounces or 160 grams, and there were a lot of them on the plants. The flesh is a light emerald color. And as for the taste, I liked it. Unusual, but definitely good. Sweet with a slight but noticeable acidity. I consider myself a fan of green one-ripe tomatoes, and I think that among you there are also those who like such varieties. Therefore, Dwarf Saucy Mary is an interesting option that is definitely worth trying, if only for its combination of yield, flavor, and appearance. And if you still prefer tomatoes of other colors, I have prepared them for you. How do you imagine the tomato of your dreams? Maybe for some it's huge, for others it's all the colors of the rainbow. Perhaps this question is really hard to answer, because tomatoes are so different. They are different tastes, shapes and colors, and it's even difficult to choose just one favorite from those varieties that you have already grown. But here is the next dwarf tomato. Despite the fact that it's a dwarf, it's not the lowest, became for me a real joy during the season, and here is why. It was beautiful, it was productive, the plant itself certainly pleased me, resistant to diseases and also delicious. And it's called Hazs Dream. This representative of the dwarf tomato project bred by Vince Lavallo is quite tall. The height of the plants was about 4 feet 11 inches or 1.5 meters when grown in 4 stems, which is quite a lot not only by the standards of dwarf tomatoes, but even some indeterminate varieties. The foliage of Hazs Dream is potato type and very beautiful. Velvety, literally blue-green in color, thick, wide, and reliably shelters the fruit from sunburn. Also, the variety has shown high resistance to diseases, which is certainly not insignificant. Tomatoes have a round shape, small size and purple color. The plants didn't seem to notice the summer heat and continued to consistently set new fruits to the top. And of course, don't forget to tie them securely, because in the aggregate of grain mass and the weight of the fruit, they are quite heavy. The tomatoes weighed an average of 3.5 to 5 ounces, or 100 to 130 plus grams, which is certainly not a record, but they were plentiful and are harvested regularly throughout the season. The flesh is dark purple in color and the flavor is predominantly sweet. There is very little acidity. The fruity flavor is also present, and overall, Hazs Dream is a juicy and delicious tomato. The way they grew in the greenhouse, it was just a feast for my eyes. Yes, probably even from the seedling stage to the frost, I was pleased to watch them. Only positive experiences with this variety, and I can safely recommend it to everyone. As Susan Oliverson, who participated in the stabilization of the variety, said, it was a dream tomato. The next dwarf, bred by Patrinonowski Small, is already better known to tomato lovers and is called Rosella Crimson. The plants are not tall and their growth was only about 2 feet 4 inches or 70 centimeters both when grown in the greenhouse and outdoors. The fruits are large, especially for such a non-tall plant, with thin skin, bright, shiny, pink in color, flat round shape and ribbed. In general, they look pretty. By the way, the variety is named after one of the varieties of Australian parrots. The weight of tomatoes was from 9 to 10 ounces, or 250 to 287 grams, which is a good result, and of course after weighing, I was wondering what awaits me at the first tasting. On the cut, the flesh is crimson in color and juicy. I also immediately smelled a bright fruity flavor. The sweetness is noticeable, the acidity is not much, but it's there. In general, quite a pleasant flavor picture, and not for nothing, this variety is included in the top 10 most delicious dwarfs in the personal opinion of Patrina, from whom I received the seeds of Rosella Crimson. As practice has shown, tomatoes are excellent for processing for juice and sauce, and I tend to believe that the taste of the fruit used in this process is invariably related to the taste of the final product. But that's not the only Rosella in this review, and more importantly, it's not the only delicious Rosella. Another new dwarf tomato is called Rozella By Color. This is still a rare tomato variety, according to some versions native to the United States of America, and it has its own undeniable advantages. Plants with a potato leaf, but not as wrinkled as most dwarf tomatoes, but still wider, reached a height of 4 feet 3 inches or 1.3 meters when grown in 4 stems. At the same time, they formed large bicolor fruits of flat round shape of yellow-pink color. Stems in comparison with other Rosellas are thinner, but due to this, the plants are just able to reach higher. The size of tomatoes certainly pleased me, and their weight ranged from 14 ounces to more than a pound, or 394 to 478 grams. Yes, some of them by my oversight grew from double flowers and clearly didn't qualify for participation in the Miss Universe contest, but believe me, it did not affect their taste. Inside, this tomato is very attractive, juicy, with bright yellow-orange flesh and equally bright pink streaks, and it's very tasty. This bicolor is sweet, but with a noticeable and pleasant fruity tomato acidity. Wonderful flavor in my opinion. The variety is large-fruited, but despite this, tomato flavor is literally concentrated in the fruit. Balance of flavor. Good, juicy, fruity, all rolled into one. Rozella By Color turned out to be the variety that, even in my far from ideal conditions for growing tomatoes outdoors, was able to reveal its rich taste of a real homegrown tomato. If you liked this video, don't forget to subscribe and, of course, love tomatoes, grow tomatoes. This is the Lucky Gardening channel, and see you soon.